Hi everyone, and welcome to Open Courtauld Hour Art and Scent. My name is Layla and I'm the Programme Manager for the Research Forum here at the Courtauld. I want to start by saying, as always, the biggest thank you to Bloomberg Philanthropies for their generous support of all our digital initiatives across the Courtauld, but especially for everything they've done for Open Courtauld over the past year. And this Open Courtauld event is asking, what does it mean to smell art history? So tonight we will explore how the Courtauld can use aromatic stimuli, perfumes, and fragrances to transport people to places, moments, and feelings without actually using written or visual language. We have asked you to join us, the Courtauld community, to learn more about how we are taking visitors on an olfactory journey designed to reflect the inspirations and illustrations in the artworks on our walls. And in the next hour, we will journey through scent, curated by the work of our Young People's Programme, which is very exciting. We will have a few short talks and in conversations and about 10 to 15 minutes, hopefully, at the end for your questions. You can get these to me throughout the hour via the chat and also on social media. We are on @CourtauldRes, and please do use the hashtag Open Courtauld Hour to let us know what you think. And if you have any pictures or anything, also send them our way. So now it is my pleasure to hand it over to Helen Higgins, who is Head of Learning and Oak Foundation Young People's Programme Manager here at the Courtauld. You might have noticed if you've been to a few of these events that we all have really long job titles at the Courtauld. But yeah, thank you again, Helen, for being here. I will hand it over to you to get started.
Thank you so much, Layla, and good evening, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure to be here to share this project with you. I'm just going to be giving you a little bit of background about our recent explorations around scent. So with that, I'm going to share my screen to share some images of the project. So a set of scents were created back in November 2021 as part of our Young People's Project run by the Courtauld Learning Department. And they form part of a much bigger artwork devised by a group of young people aged 16 to 18 in collaboration with Turner Prize winning artist Jeremy Deller. For those of you less familiar with the Courtauld, we're a university focused on the study of art history, conservation and curating, and Jeremy Deller is one of our alumni. As you may know or may not know, art history is only taught currently in 8 state schools across the UK. And the Courtauld therefore runs an extensive learning programme which aims to increase the number of young people in the UK with access to art history, and importantly to invite young people from all different backgrounds to participate in and shape the field of art history for the future. And all of the young people taking part in our project with Jeremy Deller had previously attended our free online art history taster workshops, either that or our free week-long Year 12 Art History Summer University programme. And the impetus for the project, which was funded by the Ampersand Foundation, was the need to activate our brand new Leon Kossoff Learning Centre. And we asked Jeremy and the young people to work collaboratively to create an artwork that would make the space as welcoming as possible for a variety of audiences. And here's a sort of brief project overview. The project evolved over a series of workshops running between June and November 2021. To become a series of interventions in the space. To begin with, Jeremy Deller selected Edward Manet's A Bar at the Folies Bergère, painted in 1882. And of course, the painting is well known for raising more questions than it answers and can still connect with important social issues 140 years on from its production. And it really encourages us to draw on our lives and imaginations to interpret the artwork. And that's really how we approached it through the Young People's Project. The new commission is in a similar spirit, and Fran's going to be talking a bit more about this artwork shortly. More specifically, participants were asked to come up with an artwork that would create a really welcoming and creative social space for our Learning Centre audiences. We also wanted it to empower and inspire audiences who don't usually connect with museums and galleries to engage with art and art history. We also wanted an artwork that would spark conversation, encourage collaboration, analysis, experimentation and reflection, and also encourage connections between past and present, demonstrating contemporary relevance and interdisciplinary nature of art history. And as you can see from this image of the new Learning Centre with the artworks in situ, they've really excelled themselves. It's a really beautiful, welcoming space. So I'm just going to show you some of the artworks before talking a little bit about the scent. So the group chose to focus really on sensory engagement and a kind of communal atmosphere. They were particularly interested in the idea that Manet had captured a whole social world in his painting. And the young people chose to extract the most distinct elements of the painting, like the acrobat's legs you see here dangling from the ceiling. And they commissioned different craftspeople to remake these objects as real objects for the space. And the idea was that each artwork element would provide a subtle clue that finally comes together when people stand in front of the painting in the gallery. They invited audiences to respond creatively and draw further connections relating to their own experiences. But as you can imagine, working in a listed building brought with it its own challenges. The silhouetted acrobat legs and the coloured glass that you see here developed out of Hannah's research into 19th century performances and shadow puppets. Another work they created with these cushions, which they've proved really great conversation starters with our various groups in the Learning Centre. There was also much discussion around triangles and how to incorporate these in the space. And as you can see from the resulting work, they also serve a practical function. So we used acoustic foam to help absorb sound in the space. Now, the young people and Jeremy Della both felt really strongly that the new artwork should be as beautifully and finely made as the pieces in the main gallery. And we certainly did this by commissioning a number of artists and crafts people to create these objects. And that included this beautiful bowl of sensory mandarins, which were developed out of an idea by Amber, who thought about how inviting it would be to touch all of the different textures in the painting, and how this could be really engaging for people who were new to art history. And it proved to be a rather epic undertaking, with us making, I think, over 100 different mandarins in all sorts of different textures: lace, velvet, felt, glass, you name it, we did it. And now finally turning to the perfume aspect. Sarah helped our young participants create perfumes relating to 6 different and distinct areas of Manet's Bar de Folie Bergère. They worked in teams along with artist Jeremy Della, curator Karen Sayre, and our Courtauld educators. And the 6 different accords were also combined to create a final room fragrance. This was really amazing. It was a once in a lifetime experience, as the gallery was still closed to the public prior, and it was in the middle of refurbishment, just as we were reinstalling the works. And we were given special access by our curator of paintings. None of us had encountered an artwork in this way before. And we'll hear more about this shortly from Sarah and the young people. Finally, we rounded up the project with a celebration day for friends and family in early March. And this was also an opportunity for Kana, who's with us this evening, to show her own personal and very powerful response to the painting. Here you can see her with her painting and Jeremy in the gallery in front of the Bar de Folie Bergère. And now I'm going to hand over to Fran, who's going to talk a bit more about the painting behind the project.
Hello everyone, I'm just going to get the painting back up for us. A Bar at the Folie Bergère is Edward Manet's last major painting. It was completed a year before he died and exhibited at the Paris Salon in 1882. The scene encapsulates a lively social environment that the artist was very familiar with. The Folie Bergère was a popular Parisian music hall which staged all kinds of performances. Keen-eyed viewers might have spotted the acrobat's feet in the top left-hand corner. Lights remained on for performances and audiences continued to talk. Music and voices would mingle along with the sounds of clinking glasses, people probably trying to talk over each other, call out to friends. It's a large painting, it's close to life size, so it would not have been possible for Manet to paint this in the venue. Instead, he made sketches back at his studio. He recreated the bar, and a barmaid called Suzanne posed for him after her shifts. Manet's rough brush marks with varied areas of focus convey the movement of the crowd. These techniques connect him to the Impressionist group of artists in Paris at the same time. The experience of the crowd might not have been entirely pleasant. We can imagine the heat and the smell of so many bodies packed together. We can also think about perhaps the different perfumes people would have been wearing and all those scents mingling. For 19th century viewers, the atmosphere would have felt overtly new and modern. The Folies Bergère was the first venue in Paris to have electric lighting. The whole image is full of reflective surfaces. It must have been something of a relief for the barmaid to put her hands on the cold marble or to touch the cold glass of the drinks. Her uniform doesn't look very comfortable, although Manet has captured the textures of the lace and the velvet brilliantly. In case any audience members are wondering, it is supposed to be a mirror behind the barmaid. No one knows exactly why Manet put her reflection off at an angle, but it was deliberate. We can see in the X-ray of the painting that Manet took his time to make conscious changes. The barmaid's hands were originally folded across her stomach. The reflection was moved further to the right. She seems to be leaning further forward in her reflection as well. The man was also made more prominent in the final composition versus earlier sketches. We're left to guess the identity of the male figure. Is he her boss? Is it the artist himself? Or perhaps a reflection of us in the role of a customer? Comparable modern spectacles were the new shopping arcades and world fairs in Paris during Manet's lifetime. The art historian Ruth Iskin has pointed out similarity with 19th century advertisements, especially for perfume. Prints that appeared in newspapers and periodicals frequently featured these impressive displays of luxury objects, sometimes combined with an attractive young saleswoman behind the counter. This woman wears flowers similar to our barmaid. The luxury objects, including the champagne and the Bass beer, do not look very practical for a working bar. The oranges as well seem a bit of an oddity in this context, but our curator has explained these are actually alcohol-infused and candied oranges. While there are similarities with commercial imagery at the time, it is important to point out that Manet's barmaid does not have the same seductive expression as those adverts. It baffles people today, just as it did when it was first exhibited. For Jeremy Deller, it stood out as a very timeless expression, still recognizable perhaps on the faces of contemporary service workers, or the type of look we might see on public transport. The urban environment with all its sensory stimuli can be exciting, but it can also be overwhelming. Sometimes we need to detach. There is a lot more to talk about with this image, but at this point, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'd like to introduce perfumer Sarah McCartney and bring in her perspectives on the painting and our learning project. Sarah is an independent, London-based perfumer and the founder of 4,160 Tuesdays. Welcome, Sarah.
Hi.
We were incredibly lucky to find you for our project. And you've worked with museums and cultural organisations before. I'd like to ask, how do you think a perfumer can enhance visitors' engagement with a historical collection?
I think being able to create an atmosphere, literally an atmosphere that could possibly have been similar to what was there at the time, makes people think about an artwork in a way that they hadn't previously thought about it. And I've had so many messages since the event last week of people saying now they're looking at paintings thinking, well, what did that one smell of? So it's sort of like opening an extra little portal into an emotional connection that we didn't have without them.
Amazing. And what were your initial thoughts when you saw the painting? Did you think it would be easy or challenging to capture the atmosphere?
Neither of those things, just really exciting. There are so many new materials around at that time that a lot of people were suddenly wearing perfume. People who couldn't afford it before were suddenly able to start putting it on. And so there was a lot around, and complaints that you couldn't tell the working classes anymore from people with money, because perfume, synthetic perfumes, were suddenly available to the world. So there was all that to work with, and then there was the aromas of the different drinks, the aromas of people's clothes that weren't washed as much as they are now. There were so many ideas that I didn't really stop to worry.
And did you imagine yourself in the painting?
That's interesting. Yes, I was imagining myself looking at her, not looking back the other way. I hadn't looked out towards the curtain. I was just looking behind and thinking, "Oh, okay, where's the band? Where are they all dancing? How squashed are they together?" I was placed in the crowd.
Oh, you saw yourself within the crowd.
Yeah, pushing my way to the front, wherever the band was.
I think there's something quite special about the painting. We can imagine ourselves within different roles, whether we're the barmaid, whether we're her customer, maybe we're the acrobat up in the air. That's fantastic.
I would have liked to be in the acrobat. I had never even noticed the acrobat until we got into the room. I mean, and I saw the metal legs. I know everyone knows the painting. I hadn't seen the legs before.
And so you're obviously someone, you enjoy the historical as well as the creative side. Was this something that tapped into sort of existing knowledge of maybe 19th century perfumes?
Well, yes, there's a kind of golden age from about the 1870s through to 1920s, when chemists were just creating so many new colors for paint and for clothing and aromas. The same man who invented the bright color purple that was around, called mauve at the time, and started this massive trend, he synthesized coumarin, which is available from tonka beans, and enabled the whole fern fragrance trend to start off around about that time. So I'm really interested in recreating fragrances which could have existed at a certain moment without anything invented after that. So I went and dug up the start dates, the launch dates of when different things were dripped into the perfume consciousness, because nobody said, "Oh, look, we've synthesized violets." It's like, "Oh, look, we've managed to bring you some less expensive violet perfumes, madam." So it was never talked about, but except within the trade. But it was a really exciting time for perfumery. So I'd looked at that era before. I'd done some Gatsby ones and some Proust ones, and for various, usually educational establishments, but then people like them, so I often end up selling them anyway.
Amazing. It's interesting to think of all those new scents coming out at the same time, new synthetic pigments coming out as well. Lots of parallels there between the art world and perfume. And are there any particular components, do you think, that really sort of define our Manet scent? Any really essential components?
I suppose the bit that I enjoyed doing most was the idea of the sweaty, bustling crowd. Now, those materials didn't necessarily exist at the time. I brought this material called Aurelione, which is a synthetic musk, which is, I thought it smells exactly like charity shops. It's clean clothes, but they've just been hanging around in a wardrobe for a while. And I got it out and passed it around. In fact, Jeremy Della smelled it and went, "Charity shops." I was quite delighted. So I brought that along as well. And also in perfumery, we use a little bit of cumin. You don't need a lot for sweaty bodies. It's lovely in food, but in perfume, it's a bit kind of, did you wash yesterday? And of course, people at the time didn't wash every day. That would have been a ridiculous waste of hot water, even cold water. So I think the general stinkiness, bringing in imitation civets, which would have been used, the real stuff would have been used at the time. I particularly enjoy just trying to make a bit of a a pongy throng.
Fantastic. And I didn't remember violets. That was quite a distinctive
Yeah,
smell for the final. People
yeah.
often sort of pick up on floral notes, and that's probably something our audience can relate to as well. I think most of us know that scent.
Yeah, we kind of went for what would the woman have been smelling of, probably, if she had bought herself a fragrance around about that time, and violets were in. So ionones. Violet was extraordinarily expensive. Napoleon, when he became emperor, used to shower himself with the stuff, just to show how wealthy he was. And so as soon as synthesized violets appeared, they were massively popular. Vanillin as well. We used synthetic vanilla, which, you know, they kind of pretended it all come from somewhere mystical and Eastern, and it all came from Holzminden in Germany. So the violet and vanilla and a material called Velvione, which is quite a modern musk, but it has the feeling, the texture of velvet. So we use that for her lace and for her velvet, which that's much more enjoyable, I think, just to smell, maybe less exciting to create.
I remember those fabric ones. It's perhaps difficult to imagine, but how, yes, a texture like velvet, or I think there was a cashmere one as well. Yes, how textures can conjure up smells.
Yes, it's a raw material called cashmeran, and it's a single molecule, but it just has, it doesn't exist in nature. It smells really exciting, and it has a feeling, I think, of sort of warm skin, but also in soft wool. And patchouli we had at the time, because people would put patchouli onto their genuine cashmere to stop the moths. So that was around a lot as a natural moth repellent. It's you can choose to set it very historically, or we can go a little bit more exciting, and we went that route. Materials, it's not all about just the smell. It's about how they react with other things, and how they feel, and how they almost sound. Some people, including me, will smell a material and it has a musical note. So that's my synesthesia, is a sound smell. But yes, thinking not just of what does it smell like, do you know, but how does it make you feel? What do you imagine it would feel like in the fingers if you could touch it? So bringing those out of the painting as well, that was, or putting them in, all fascinating.
It was incredible fun. I was very lucky to be at the workshop, and I wondered at this point, perhaps I should just share a few images actually of you in action, Sarah, and the young people as well, doing the creating.
Okay.
As Helen mentioned, this was a very unusual situation. We wouldn't typically be able to set ourselves up like this in the great room of the Courtauld Gallery, but because of the closure, we had this window of opportunity, and Sarah kindly brought in an array of scents, some we've just heard about, and we were there, I think, for well over an hour initially in the gallery, testing out these different fragrances and combinations. I think a lot of us realized we needed to train our noses a little bit, actually.
Yeah, and there we are wearing those masks, because we couldn't cover our noses with masks, or else we would have, it was so difficult. But it was, peak COVID, of course. So you kindly got in those screens for us. So excellent. Yeah, there's that excellent look of concentration there. You smell it, and you have to take yourself somewhere else. You have to pretend that or just turn off your sight so that you can feel what's happening. Oh yeah, that's great. So somebody paying great, are those your notes then? Somebody's really paying attention.
No, they're not mine, actually. They're one of the young people.
Yes, yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, the Divana I see we used there, that's actually an Indian Artemisia, but it smells a lot like mulled wine. So yes. Oh yes, that's right. yeah, getting that close as well, it was great.
Here we are. We turned our learning centre into a laboratory with Sarah's equipment.
Yes, yeah, I was really pleased that everybody wanted to get so stuck in and start to create. I mean, we divided them all up, and we into different parts of the painting so that people got to choose which elements they wanted to make the aroma of. And yeah, very carefully there, doing the weighing correctly so that we could recreate it in bigger quantities for exhibiting in the center and putting on the wall. Yeah, everybody was extraordinarily enthusiastic and totally well behaved and very quiet, I thought. But yes, we're concentrating really hard. Oh, the orange one. I guess the best one the best fun one was the candied orange scent, I think. Alcoholic candied oranges. They ended up smelling just really gorgeous. Mandarins and ethyl maltol, the smell of candy floss we brought. Because sugar, of course, has no smell. There's no point putting sugar in. But heat it up, make candy floss, that really does have an aroma. And so we brought that with us as well.
Oh, we've revealed our formula for that one.
Yeah, we've given away the aroma. Well, but that's great. I mean, I'm just really pleased to see that, because weighting everything down is rule number 1 of perfume making, and measuring it correctly. You know, rule number 2 is put the lids back on before anything terrible happens. And yeah, that's exactly what we were doing.
And this is you creating the final mix, which was a bit nerve-wracking because individually the scents smelt reasonably nice, but we weren't quite sure what would happen when it all came together.
Yeah, the only part really that I was involved in sort of technically at the end of it, having I spent the day dropping some big hints, but people were free to do, the young people were free to do the blends that they wanted to. So then we took what we would call different accords, the different blends, and then I combined them in a way which I felt would be still pleasant to smell. So not too much of the sweaty crowd, rather more of the woman's dress and of the candied oranges, but still enough back of the bar smell and the booze and the crowd and the gentleman's coat, which maybe he hadn't had laundered for quite a long while. Enough of that just to make it smell a little bit realistic, I think.
Well, Sarah, I think you've demystified the perfume making process for everyone involved in this project. What advice would you give to our audience this evening if they wanted to do something like this?
Well, it's quite a tricky thing to get into, perfumery, and it's so secretive and it's a little bit mystifying, and the industry a lot of the time mystifies it deliberately so people don't start mixing things randomly without knowing exactly what they're up to. But there are workshops. There's some London Craft Week workshops coming up on perfumery. They happen to be at my studio, but if you happen to be in London, great. But there's an internet now. There are resources for people who want to learn. There's a great establishment in Los Angeles to learn, and yeah, just knowing a little bit more about how we deal with safe synthetics. It's not all natural. Can't necessarily take a notes list as meaning what we smell from a perfume is what we put into a perfume, but that it's fun. I think that's the biggest thing. It is really, really excellent fun to make fragrances, to conjure up the feeling of a place and time, not just something nice and flowery to wear.
That's brilliant advice. And I guess just always being on the lookout for inspiration as well. So many possible sources, and hopefully people like us will start to think about galleries and artworks in a slightly different way too.
Even I think just imagining what something might smell like as you look at it now, not just how beautifully composed it is and the brush strokes, but just think, what if it were there, what would it smell like? And then we've opened up another door in our minds, even if we can't actually be there and smell it at the time.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm going to hand back over to Layla now, who has some questions for the young people.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you both so much for that. Just going to say to everyone at home that Fran is one of our wonderful public programmes educators, and the event that Sarah mentioned at the start of their conversation was an after hours in our gallery, which was all about perfume and invited people to actually experience the smell, which is a little bit hard over Zoom. So sorry that you guys can't experience that. And I think a lot of the things that have come up today have definitely showcased how significant smell and experiencing things in a different way post pandemic can be. So now it is my delight to introduce and invite to the screen 4 participants from this wonderful project that we've been speaking about. So thank you to Amber, Remy, Hannah and Kanar for being with us this evening. So if you want to all turn your cameras on. Hi guys, we'll just spotlight you so everyone can see. Great, hi, thank you and welcome to the virtual Courtauld. I know you've all been in the Courtauld, in the gallery a lot already, and I've seen a lot of your work in person as well. But first of all, I wanted to ask, how did the perfume workshop change your perspective on the artwork and its specific elements maybe of it? And I'm thinking in particular of the time you spent in front of the painting with all the different scents. So really, how did that change the way you looked at it? And I'm not sure who wants to have a stab at answering that first.
Hi. So a lot of people just walk by a painting and they don't really think of how it smells or anything like that. And they don't really think of a story behind it. And just thinking of how the painting smells. I mean, just imagining standing in front of the painting, you really should think of the elements inside there and what the painting smells like and how it sounds like. And so, you know, a lot of paintings would just smell very different. And I think that's very important to know.
Great, thank you. What about the rest of you? Did you have a similar experience with the workshop?
Yeah, so during the workshop, I had the lucky experience of it being the first time I'd actually ever engaged with the Courtauld or going to the gallery and seeing the Manet. And I think what really helped was the fact that it's life-size, so you can really immerse yourself into the painting as the barmaid looks out at you. So it's almost like she's asking you to engage with the painting even more. And when smelling all the scents, I think the ones that particularly stuck with me were the cedarwood, musky smell, and then oranges. And there were so many different smells to take into account that it was almost, I wouldn't say an assault to the senses, but very, I guess it just opens up a whole new world in actually engaging with art itself, and being able to, think of art in this new light was really quite eye-opening, and especially since with the Impressionist movement, instead of focusing on figure like, say, the Renaissance, where everything's about proportion and symmetry and being removed from a painting, instead Impressionism, paints an impression and a feeling. It's definitely like seen in the background where you just see the motion of all this swaying crowd. So I think it was brilliant to be able to actually experience it as an audience member or a viewer might have seen it at the time.
Great, thank you. You've definitely made a case for us to do this every day in the gallery, have some kind of scent experience for everyone who comes in. I actually wasn't able to make the event last week, so I was very disappointed, but I heard really great things about it and how absolutely amazing it was to immerse yourself in the paintings in a totally different way. But yeah, Amber and Hannah, did you want to say something about this question, or I can move on to the next?
The fragrance allows us, well, when I was standing in front of the painting, the fragrance helped me understand what the sitter was probably could be feeling. And it just feels like the presence of the fragrance just opens up a whole new experience to the audience looking at this painting, and allows us to have an even deeper connection in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess because we look at that painting now, because it's such a famous painting, we don't think about how the sitter would have been probably in a really pongy atmosphere, and actually it kind of unromanticizes it a little bit if we think about that. But yeah, Hannah, do you want to say anything, any sense or any moments that you had that really struck you?
I think just learning about the origins of some of the scents and like whether they were used at the time. It does like make me think about the setting and what the artist would have experienced, and it did like learning about the history, and it made the painting just come alive for me. So
Great. Yeah, no, it's very humanizing actually, just hearing about how we still use quite a lot of the similar scents within our perfumes today. So it's a really nice story to tell. You can feel connected with the artwork and the people in it in a different way. So that's really, really great answers. Thank you all. I was wondering as well if you remembered any unusual or surprising smells that you got in the workshop, or maybe you had maybe a strong reaction to something or anything you didn't really like.
Cumin.
Okay.
As an ingredient that I use in my cooking quite a bit, it was very surprising to sit there and smell cumin and use cumin in something that you would wear on your body at an event or a nice night out, or just in general. And it made me feel quite a bit weirded out that we would put something that we would eat, put on our food that we eat on our body.
Yeah, that is unusual. I'm trying to actually think about what cumin smells like now, and all I can think about is food. So yeah, that's exactly it. You kind of feel like you're rubbing your dinner on your wrists or something. But what about everyone else? Do you have anything that you were like, oh, this isn't for me, we're not putting this in the perfume?
I think all of the smells were quite strong, to be honest, at least for me. And I think I found particularly cashmere, it was quite strong. And so I was just there trying to find a calm one. But yeah, they were all quite different.
Yeah, it's funny because everyone has different perfumes that are their go-to. We all have scents that we like, and there's things that we don't like. So it's definitely really fascinating to put that in front of an artwork. Remy and Hannah, did you have one, maybe even one that you really liked? Actually, we've gone through the negatives. Is there anything you thought, this is amazing, I love this scent?
I think the scent that we made to kind of imitate the candied oranges was particularly nice, as you'd expect. But it really, yeah, painted this kind of sense of luxury, because they were like a huge luxury at the time to have candied oranges in your in an establishment, since they were so lavish and whatnot. So I think it really painted a sense of that kind of luxury. It was quite novel.
Right. And Hannah, is there anything that you thought was like great or bad?
I can't really remember the exact names, but I like the one that smelled like candy floss. Like it's weird. Like when you smell it, you think it smells exactly as you remember it, and it's just weird because I mean, some people smell things like when we were like passing around all these scents, like some people guessed on what they might be, and some people had very different answers to each other. So it's quite different because it's quite nice to see like everyone kind of describing a scent too. Like they all have their own kind of perceptions of it. So it was quite nice to see that.
Yeah, it must have been nice for you all to be together physically there as well, because I know that there was a lot on Zoom. I know we're on Zoom again today, but you did a few things before, so it was good to actually physically all be there and work on it. And before we go to the audience questions, I just wondered if there's any memories that you wanted to share about the project, anything at all that you think you just wanted to get off your chests or tell everyone about as maybe a highlight of it.
I think all of the workshops we had, they were all so much fun. Just seeing everybody on cameras were just a bit quite different. But then coming on the first place and just seeing everybody in person, I think that was like the most beautiful thing, because like I actually got to see people in person.
Oh, that's really lovely. And it sounds like you all had a really great time and have inspired us. You know, we've actually learned loads from you and what you did, and how we can do things differently going forward. So yeah, thank you all for actually coming in and taking the time out to teach us what we can do and how to actually make things more exciting and more 2022, I suppose. But yeah, what about everyone else? Did you have any memories you wanted to share?
I enjoyed just hearing everybody's different opinions and having a nice discussion about the artwork and hearing other people's responses and opinions on the artwork as it was, because it gives you like a very big insight into what different people from different backgrounds can think of something that could be influenced from their own experiences, and create this response and work together to be able to make something out of it. And as Kana said, I enjoyed every single second of it, especially meeting everybody and actually forming this friendship with everybody.
That's lovely. And Remy and Hannah, what about you?
I think kind of echoing Amber and Kana, I think just the group nature of it was really, really something quite special, because it's not something that you do every day, going to the Courtauld or any art gallery and smelling scents and trying to evoke a painting and break down that that pictorial plane and bring it into your space. But it was really quite remarkable, like all the conversations that we had about what we engaged with when we saw it, what particular things struck us. For some people it might have been the candied oranges. For many people it was the acrobats legs. But yeah, I think just that element of discussion and being able to humanize the work and bring it into the here and now through discussion and through the senses, I think was the highlight.
Great. Hannah, do you want to say anything before we move on?
I think us going to see the painting for the first time as a group was quite like, it was quite special, because we talked about this painting so much. We've made so many notes and researched so many aspects of it, but then finally standing in front of it, and we spent quite a long time standing. I think it was about like 40 minutes, and we had like little magnifying glasses and we looked very close at it, and like finally seeing this painting up close, because I'd never been to the Courtauld Gallery before, it was really special. I don't think I've ever looked at a painting that hard before. And
yeah, no, it is absolutely.
Just seeing like all the brush marks up close, you could see where Manet had spent a bit less time on one part and moved a section over. And yeah, like it felt like all that progress that we'd made as a group just kind of like
yeah, like
it all led to that moment.
That's amazing. Yeah, I also, the first day I went into the gallery and saw everything hung, like I've been in and out when it was being renovated, and you know, you forget that those artworks are there. And the first day I went in, I had a similar reaction. You just think, wow, especially when you are one of the few people in that space and you have such a special moment with the artwork and you get to see it in a totally different light. So yeah, now you guys have made me jealous that I wasn't involved in this project. So I think we're going to spend the remaining time to try and get through some audience questions. So we're going to invite everyone else to come back on screen if possible. Hello again, everyone. So before we get to those questions, I wanted to start by opening up this conversation with everyone here, is with this question: how can we apply scent more widely as a learning tool for art history? And I don't know who wants to take that first. It's a big question.
I wondered, slightly sort of passing this question on, but if Tana and Hannah, if you wanted to talk a little bit about how you very recently shared some scents with a wider audience, with the public, as part of our late event. And I can share a couple of images of this as well.
That'd be great. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So here they are in action, engaging, well, all kinds of different audience members in scent.
Yeah, I can see that one of the members of our cafe is having the time of his life in that picture. I need to send that to him so he remembers what a good time he was having. But what was this workshop? Does someone want to say what was going on here and what was inspired by?
So we had 4 different paintings in that workshop, and the main thing was sort of to inspire people to look at the paintings differently. And so they can sort of think of the painting, how the painting smells like and everything. And obviously people had different opinions. So there was a lot of people who actually agreed with us with the senses that we chose. And there was a lot of people who thought that they might be a bit different. But it was just really nice to see people's reaction and how they engage with the paintings differently.
Yeah, it looks super fun. Great. Does anyone else want to answer that question?
I just want to pick up on something. Also, oh, sorry, Hannah.
We also set up like 4 different kind of plates that a lot of people said they looked quite nice, but also like they smelt it regularly, and like they have such normal scents. Like there's lavender, there's like peach blossom, there's the beach, and they're quite regular scents, but a lot of people smelt them and said that they reminded them of their childhood. Like some people picked up that the scent of the seaweed and sand and pebbles was from Brighton, which it was. And yeah, a lot of people quite surprised at some of the scents, like beeswax. They didn't know really what that smelled like, and quite surprised by it. And people said that the one of Antibes like matched like the area because they'd been there, and yeah, it was quite nice to hear that.
Yeah, that's amazing. We worked on a musical piece with Antibes, so I wonder if we should do something where we have the smell that you guys associated with it, and then have the music as well, so we can have a proper full experience. Maybe we can get some food in as well. It could be really fun.
Yeah, I feel like putting the sensory kind of, because usually you just look at a painting, you don't really like, you just look at like what's on there, you don't think about what the place is, like what would it be like to go into that environment. And yeah, I feel like having smell and touch and taste like makes you look at a painting a lot differently. And as in a gallery, it's quite, the walls are white, it's like you're not allowed to touch it. And it would be really interesting to have a scent or something associated with that. So I think that this project like made me think about that a lot more.
Great, and this really comes into one of the questions we got from the audience, Emily, who's asking if the experience has sparked ideas for any of you of other paintings that you'd like to create a scent for. Was there a particular, it might not even be in the Courtauld collection, but is there anything that all of you have thought, that's exactly what I want to create a scent for this artwork? I'm thinking if I was to create one, everyone who has seen me do any of these knows I'm obsessed with the Courtauld bag. but I would love there to be a scent associated with that, because it's got a scene of feasting on the top, and you can see them all with their wine and everything, and there's so much going on, and I think you could do something really fun with that to create a scent. But yeah, was there any other works? On Teads is a really obvious one to work with. It's a easy one, but yeah. Or Helen and Fran and Sarah, was there anything else that any paintings you thought, I would love to work on a similar project, but with this painting instead?
All of them.
All of them.
One by one, gradually,
That's
month
scary.
by month, just, yeah, working my way through the entire collection. But particularly, I think peach tree. I'd like to do a peach tree for you.
Yeah, that'd be wonderful.
I think Remy made a really important point actually about the Impressionist works lending themselves really well to this kind of project, because the artist, in pretty much most cases, was there, and it relates to a particular time and place. So it perhaps makes Sarah's task as a perfumer a little bit easier. But I think, as you say, later with the metalwork objects as well, I sometimes talk about the ceramics, the Renaissance Maiolica ceramics that would have held all kinds of delicious foods, or maybe sort of medicine jars with dried fruits and herbs, or bowls for hand washing, sort of scented rose water or orange water. I think the possibilities are endless, really, within the collection.
Yeah, and Elisa's made a really good point in the chat, saying that it would be interesting to use this approach to focus on senses in conjunction to an exhibition. So that's definitely something we should consider maybe doing in the future with an exhibition involving all of you guys, I'm sure. And the other question we have is from Grace, and it's for Sarah. Actually, it's for everyone. What perfume do you wish you had created? It's another very open-ended, big question for you all. The hard one as well.
Well, it's fine for me because I can just go into the studio tomorrow and make whatever I want, you know. So it's much harder for everybody else, but have ideas and let me know. Well, you can all come over.
So don't know if I'll be there every day. If you're open that up, I won't go into work. I'll just come and help you. But I feel like I'd probably make some quite wild perfumes if I was left alone, just because I'd like, ooh, I wonder what this will smell like. But yeah. We also have another question from Liz, which is, how does fragrance enhance the feeling of the artwork? Which, yeah, I guess we've touched on that quite a lot, but it's a really good point. Like, how does fragrance enhance the feeling of the artwork, rather than just what it represents, like how you feel about it?
Can I go with the sorry Remy, but just what you were saying about the impression of being at the seaside is that there was one particular material which I had given you which gave the impression of Antibes, and it's one single molecule, and it is, you can just give an impression with a scent. It doesn't have to be the entire thing encapsulated. It can be one quick whiff and it's like, oh, I'm there. And the cedarwood we're talking about, that a little bit of cedarwood, it smells like every pencil you ever sharpened, and it just unleashes memories. So it's like time travel, and you only need to give this one little waft of something. It doesn't have to be complex. Ours is, but it can be just a little whiff of peaches, and there you are under a peach tree. So I think they go very well with Impressionism.
Yeah, and Remy, what were you wanting to say there as well?
And yeah, just adding on to Sarah's point, really, because I'm pretty sure scent is the feeling, or yeah, one of the five senses that is most associated with memory. And I really feel that when I don't know, I smell the sea, it gives like great nostalgia, really. And I think that really helps cement artworks and make them more moving, and you understand how people, 100, 200 years ago were greatly moved by different paintings, whether they be religious or secular, and it really helps you kind of delve into that mindset, and it almost democratizes art in a sense, because it really brings it into the human here and now, the present, instead of it feeling reserved and it having to be solely about the academics and the facts and the figures. And it brings you more into the experience of it, which I think can't be replicated.
Yeah, amazing. And I think the next thing that we could do, which would be really interesting, is to think about the actual materials that are in the artwork and what they smell like and how they feel. How does it feel to make the paint and grind the pigments? What does that look like? That would be really interesting. But unfortunately, I think that's probably all we've got time for this evening. Thank you again to Bloomberg for their support, and to Helen, Fran, Sarah, Hannah, Remy, Amber, and Canar for their time, and to everyone for joining us remotely. It's been totally fascinating. Thank you all so much, and thank you for being so generous with your time and joining us. I know it's a Thursday evening, and you might have more exciting things to do, but thank you so much. We have a lot of information on our website if you want to learn more about this and to see what we have on at the Research Forum. We have quite a lot of events, an array of in-person, online, and after hours in the gallery as well. So definitely check that out, and check out what Helen and team have on at the Learning Centre as well. So thank you all again, and bye for now. See you all later.